the year in review and the year ahead. It is a great set of panelists that we've assembled to share the highlights and perhaps some lowlights of the past year and tell us about what they're looking forward to in the year ahead. My name is Geoff Dabelko. I'm a professor at the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Service at Ohio University and also senior advisor at the Wilson Center and associate senior fellow at SIPRI. And on behalf of Environmental Peacebuilding Association, it's terrific to welcome you to what's become an annual panel, an event. And in that vein, I'd love to take a moment to introduce Dr. Erica Weinthal, who's vice chair of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association board and a professor at Duke University's Nicholas School, to say a few words about the association that's making today's meeting possible and its new journal, Environment Security. So Erica, over to you.
Thank you, Geoff. And thank you for everyone for showing up. This is fantastic to see so many people taking the time to join a panel just to hear about what's been happening in the space of environmental peacebuilding. It's a growing group of practitioners and scholars, policymakers. I am here in place of Carl today, Brooke, who was pulled away. I serve as, he is the president of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, and I serve as one of the vice presidents of the association. I also see Larry Swatuk on the Zoom, who was just elected as the other vice president. So big call out and congrats. I just want to welcome everyone and encourage any of you who are not members to join the association, or you should be receiving soon notices of membership renewal. So please renew your memberships because we have a lot of exciting things happening in the next year. I'm just going to call out two things. We are launching a journal in 2023. The journal is Environment and Security. You should have seen notices going out. We would welcome submissions. And we are planning to launch in the second half of 2023. There's different opportunities to write research articles or practitioner notes. So please look at the website. And then the other thing to pay attention to is the third annual conference. We had the second one in Geneva last year, and we are on our way to launching the Road to The Hague. So please start, there's a lot to look forward in the upcoming year as we, start with a whole set of new activities on the road to the next conference. Geoff, I will go back to you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Erica. It really is a dynamic association with people from literally all over the world at different stages of their career in different sectors, tackling these issues from a variety of perspectives. So it's terrifically enriching experience to be part of the association. I think the journal will just give us additional outlets for sharing insights that people are contributing to this. And that's really our intent with today's panel, to have a informal roundtable discussion with four people who are doing really interesting things in this space. We'll have kind of unimaginative, but I think informative 2 rounds of questions, 1 round to look a year back and 1 round to look a year ahead. We will we'll do that and kick off maybe Claire, if I could ask you to start off. Claire McAllister, she's the head of the Environment Peace Initiative at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. She and folks working in that initiative have been very busy the last couple of years on this multi-pronged effort that's involved people from literally all over the world, and in both producing research and analysis and then sharing it and interacting and interfacing with a wide variety of audiences. So Claire, if I could throw it to you, and then I'll make the introductions of each of our panelists as we turn to them for their interventions. And I think we'll have you unmute, Claire, so we can hear all your good insights.
Sorry, you think I got used to these things by now. No, but thanks, Geoff, and great to see so many people online joining us today. I mean, yeah, I think It would be odd if I didn't look back at last year and say one of the highlights was the publication of Environmental Peace report, given it's taken kind of 2 years or more of effort from, I mean, at one point we had about 30 researchers in different capacities working on the report. And it's really been a huge effort from the research team, but also from our communications teams and other parts of CIPRI to really produce something that we feel is not just sort of state-of-the-art research in this space, but also is sort of understandable to different audiences. So I think we produced a report for policymakers, which we published in May, and we launched at the Stockholm Forum and had a number of great events at the Stockholm Forum and afterwards at Stockholm Plus 50. And then, in case you missed it, just before Christmas, as a small Christmas present, we published the full report, which comes in 4 parts, and each part has annexes which look at specific case studies, which we commissioned for the report. And that's kind of 300 plus pages of research and analysis, and you can really go and dive deeply into specific areas that you're interested in. And I think, you know, the team really did span a lot of different disciplines, but also kind of expertise and knowledge within this space, but coming at questions of climate security, environmental peace building, from different perspectives, and really bringing that melting pot and getting the input of a expert panel, but also the input of a youth panel and stakeholder consultations, really to kind of make it as rich and as useful as possible. And if you haven't looked at the report, basically, it's really taking a very holistic perspective on how do we see the interconnections between environment and security, how do we understand some of the pathways to conflict and insecurity risks from environmental degradation and climate change, and what are some of the risks and opportunities of the green transition. So it intentionally goes broad to try and put together some of these questions, and also to try, I guess, a lot of people maybe online are working in one of those spaces, and to try and knit together how do they all fit, and particularly for a policy audience, what can they do about them. So we put together 5 principles and 6 recommendations about how to address this question, how to more holistically look at the dual twin environment and security crisis, and how to integrate our policy making and our practice to more effectively address the risks that those 2 things are creating. I would say my second kind of huge, I guess this is more of a personal kind of highlight of the year, was then how much we could connect with people. We spent 2 years more or less doing the research part of this project on Zoom. We spent far too many hours sitting on virtual meetings with our panel, with our research team. As Geoff said, we span across 4 continents, and that can make for some challenging times of the day when we have to talk to each other. And then, so last year, just to connect with lots of people in person, to connect with people that are reading the report and asking some fantastic, difficult, great questions about how to implement the findings and the recommendations, that are telling us more about some of the projects that are going on in the ground, or some of the challenges in implementing those projects, to really sort of enrich our understanding of what we've been writing about. And I think it's hard to kind of pick out particulars, kind of highlights of who we connected with, because it felt like it just sort of not just from the writing team and the panel, but also for me it was a huge pleasure, a privilege to meet with a lot of the youth panel that we put together. And, you know, we had an event at COP27 where basically 3 of our young female youth panelists just took the stage and frankly had a much more interesting and sharp and insightful discussion than so many panel discussions that I saw about these questions. And they are really, some of the people in our youth panel are really at the sort of cold face of these questions, and are suffering greatly from some of the risks, some of the sort of impacts of environmental degradation and climate change on a day-to-day basis. But they're also the ones that are really pushing for change and really pushing for us to do something, and how are we going to implement this report? What can we do next? And really driving that process. So I think I'm going to stop there, but happy to kind of pick up on any of those points in the kind of Q&A or follow-up questions.
Terrific, thank you, Claire. As someone who was privileged to be part of this effort, I think one of the dimensions that's appealing is that the environmental peace building topic, which was central but not whole, right? It went beyond that, and one of the points was to connect some of the environment, peace, conflict, climate, and security questions to the broader concurrent and intersecting challenges, but that the environmental peace building approaches really emphasize some of the ways forward. And I think that was definitely a message that we got from a range of what we might call practitioners, formal, informal, on the ground, and high level policy, which was looking for solutions. And so I think that is a promising dimension, that the environmental peace building aspects of this analysis were often in the category of lots still to learn, lots to figure out what's working and what's not, and in what context, but a willingness to see that as part of the toolbox in responding. Great, thank you, Claire. Let's turn next to Dr. Tracy Hart. Tracy wears a number of hats at the World Bank. She's global lead for environmental risk management and the environmental and social framework, and then also global lead in fragile and conflict states for environment, natural resources, and blue economy global practice. And so beyond being busy, Tracy is one who has the kind of the day job of seeing across these different issues and bringing them together in ways that we don't always have, right? One of the challenges we faced in this space is that folks are kind of trapped in their stovepipes and can't move outside their specific briefs, budget lines, and such to see how these things connect. And the benefit of having Tracy join us is that she's able to do that and formally has the job to do it. So Tracy, over to you.
Thanks, Geoff. Thanks a lot. So those of you who have been kind of sitting with me for a while know that perhaps a year ago, I was discussing whether or not we can use the term environmental peace building within the walls of the World Bank, because peace building is kind of goes beyond the mission of the World Bank in terms of financing poverty alleviation and shared prosperity. And I think a year later, I can say that people are using the term environmental peace building a lot more often in terms of what is needed in terms of a sustainable engagement in many of the fragile and conflict states we work in. And so that's a huge success. I also wanted to note that, this past year, we've had a series of COPs or, big meetings that have been able to engage the environmental peace building community and kind of strengthen it and link it from engagement to engagement, so that we have really, thanks to Annika in large part, built a much stronger community of practice than we may have had a year ago. And that also is something that we really should not underestimate, the fact that we have a community of practice working across us. And I have to say, within the World Bank, we have a community of practice of 300 practitioners who are interested in environmental peace building, whether or not they come from it from a disaster and risk management side, or a food security side, or a climate change side, or a public health perspective, or transboundary water management, or environmental peace building in terms of an extension of environmental policy and good governance in forestry and other places. And so I represent just one of those 300 people in the bank who are really wanting to be tapped into this larger community and understand across this nexus of research and policy and practitioners what we're doing. In terms of what we at the bank did, we have a new publication called Defueling Conflict, Environment and Natural Resource Management as a Pathway to Peace. And if my colleague Phoebe, who's online, doesn't put this in the chat, I'll put this link in the chat before I log off today. And it's not earth-breaking work, but what it does is it gathers the state of the art across the environmental peacebuilding community, and it puts it in a language that World Bank and kind of client government counterparts understand in terms of how does environmental peacebuilding show up in upstream country engagement and country programming with the Ministry of Finance. How does it show up downstream in terms of individual projects? How do you mainstream conflict sensitivity into individual environmental, natural resource management, and conservation projects? And so it really is a, what I intended it to be was a cookbook with recipes that you could kind of take a recipe out for a certain stage of a project or a certain type of engagement and be able to follow the recipe. And then of course, as good recipes are, change the recipe up a little bit when you have different ingredients. So I hope you might find it of use. With respect to a broader view of the year in review, I think one of the biggest challenges has been environmental peacebuilding in the context of Ukraine. And it's a challenge because it is a European country, a obviously middle income country, a country where reconstruction is happening in stops and starts and stops and starts and movement around the country, where there is obviously a really strong technical government and counterpart in place, where the potential role of the private sector to engage in reconstruction is huge, where most of the environmental issues are brown issues, industrial issues, and where there's a huge potential to perhaps change the economic trajectory of the country away from an industrial society to a more green and resilient society. And so just this is about as far from the Sahel as you can get, kind of when we talk about, you know, our construct of environmental peacebuilding. And so it has really turned a lot of our just preconceptions of what environmental peacebuilding is on its head, in knowing that really there has to be a completely different way of doing business in Ukraine, and that in turn it will help us understand what may be a new frontier of environmental peacebuilding, which is really working in middle income countries and then linking it to this kind of first world idea of environmental justice, which is so present in environmental justice in so many of the countries in which we actually reside and work. So with that, I will pass this back to you, Geoff, but I'm really excited to hear from my colleagues. Over.
All right, thank you so much, Tracy. Can I ask a quick follow-up? Because you have, you know, a couple decades plus experience at the World Bank, so you've, I guess I'll ask it as a question. It seems, is it correct that that silo challenge has been one on these issues for a long time at the World Bank and many other institutions? So for those of us working in space, grappling with achieving some of that willingness to look across issues and see the connections, are there particular kind of top-down leadership or new platforms or new strategies for how you do your business that's allowing you to talk about environmental peace building where that was a question before, and to bring the folks in the environment space and the conflict and fragility space together?
I mean, good question. I have to say that without evoking a whole lot of controversy over the president of the World Bank, that the climate change space really pushes forward a lot of the linkages from environmental peace building into the broader sphere of fragility and conflict and security. And for those who don't understand well, people look at me and say, oh, you do environment, you're doing climate change. I'm like, well, you know, we're just a piece of the climate change puzzle. There's transport, there's energy, there's agriculture, there's water, you know, and so really it is that probably that predominant or preeminent focus on addressing climate change that is pushing the fragility and conflict agenda to kind of coalesce, which is in turn allowing me on the environmental peace building side to be able to bring a bunch of other colleagues along who say, yes, you know, we do climate change in this space too, and we should have a concerted kind of multi-sectoral approach to it. I hope that's a bit of an answer for you, Geoff.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, and that is something that is different, right? In terms of the prominence when we started these, including, you know, aforementioned Larry Swatuk, late 90s with this environmental peace building and working on that. The climate was not the driver, and it was water and natural resources, environment issues, and climate kind of post 2007 is the driver, and so that's a really interesting observation. Thank you so much, Tracy. Let's turn next to Annika Erickson Pearson, who's community management lead of the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform, where she manages a community of practice working on environment, climate, conflict, and peace, and really has been working tirelessly, frankly, I'll editorialize to say, bringing us together and finding ways to connect and sharing opportunities for people, and playing that role of kind of connector and the connective glue that we need in a field that is so diverse by geography, by issue, by kind of sector. And so, Annika, if you could talk about the work that you and the platform have been doing to bring folks together on this topic in this space.
Sure thing. Thank you. And you'll be very happy to know I actually will be taking a vacation at the end of this week. So you'll all see my out of office soon. And thank you so much for inviting me, but also for convening this review. As a community manager, I think these spaces where we come together to exchange are just so important. And I'm excited to see so many familiar and brand new faces. I'm humbled and intimidated to sort of take on the task of touching on some of these things. And actually, I'm going to set a timer for myself because I could drone on forever. So just to clarify, my role within the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform and as a community manager in community management is fostering interinstitutional collaboration, is promoting shared learning, and mainstreaming the issue into policy spheres. And I like to say that I don't usually know the answers, but I usually know who knows the answers. But over time, I've gotten this very interesting sort of vantage point to see the field very intimately. I'm in touch with a lot of you. I bother a lot of you. I'm in your inboxes quite often, and you're very generous with getting back to me. So I just have a couple of observations from 2022. One is that I've seen, especially in comparison to 2020 and 2019, when we started this community of practice, a sort of just explosion of growth, really. There are a growing number of projects, especially coming at, so I'm a peace organization, or I work for a peace organization. I come from that sort of silo. And the peace field has really taken the environment and climate change issue on in a lot of ways. If you compare to even 2 or 3 years ago, many organizations that didn't have a single person working on climate change or natural resource issues now have one or multiple full-time employees working on this. And that's a way that we can actually measure the growth of the field. UN agencies, we have the UN Peacebuilding Fund that's been funding a lot of really interesting climate security projects. And I'm excited to see a study sort of rounding those up coming out soon. Some of it is also over the course of the year, I've seen a lot of growth in the formalization of principles or ideas that have been in place over time. The work of environmental peace building is not necessarily new, but some of the ability of us to come together and formalize and crystallize and then translate into different languages and have these conversations, I've seen a huge growth in that. Another piece that I've seen a lot of growth in has just been in tools development. I'll try to do some digging and send some tools in the chat, but whether it's, the IOM's displacement matrix tracking tool that is integrating climate change factors, or UNEP's Strata project, or the Climate Security Observatory that's launching this quarter from CGIAR, there are so many tools coming out, and it's really, there are some fascinating projects. I wish that I had time to read all of the academic literature that's coming out, but I think the establishment of the journal in 2023 is also evidence of this sort of establishment and growth. Aside from just the growth in projects and sort of in staff and tools, is the growth in collaboration. So instead of sort of growing in volume, I think I come from Colorado and we're famous for having these beautiful aspen trees and the aspen groves. It's actually one single tree that can have sort of 10,000 different outshoots. And I'd love to see that sort of horizontal growth as well. I've seen a lot of collaboration on policy work, and quite frankly, I'm so appreciative. So many of you have institutional barriers that make it really difficult for you to collaborate with one another. And I see you working hard to do it anyways. And I really appreciate that. I think it strengthens our outcomes. We had a 18 organization effort to get peace and security mentioned across Stockholm Plus 50, the 50th anniversary of the UN Conference on Human Environment that happened in Stockholm this May. And it was mentioned, and in multiple places, they copy and pasted word for word what we were asking them to integrate. And that was possible because we were cropping up in numbers in different places, having conversations, but then also talking to each other about the conversations we were having. So that's a really tangible example of collaboration. Another collaboration that I'm particularly proud of that so many of you participated in was the launch of a white paper on the future of environmental peace building. And I wonder if somebody who contributed to the white paper, there are many of you, could post the link to Ecosystem for Peace in the chat. I'd be very grateful if somebody could put it in there. It's a tool. It's another one of these policy tools. Launch of Environmental Peace, as Claire was talking about, is so helpful. But that was a collaborative work. 300 of you participated across different languages to come up with 50 different visions and concrete sort of examples of how we might engage in environmental peace building. This collaborative work makes us better. I think I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get into the forward-looking piece in 2023. But I find it really clear that community members are wanting and looking for avenues through which they can connect with one another and connect with states. My timer is going off on my Fitbit here, so I'll just say one more thing. One piece that I've heard a lot this year as well is an ongoing curiosity, and it's maybe an invitation into the second part of the conversation around how we operationalize all of this work. There are so many projects going on in the environmental peace building domain, but I think that's sort of I've had many conversations with many of you asking the question, is the money going where it's needed? Are we operationalizing this agenda in the right way? So the thing that happened in 2022 is maybe not answering the question, but we certainly asked the question a lot this year. I'm curious to hear and see later if some of you are seeing some of these same dynamics, opposing dynamics, or other dynamics that I've missed. But I'll, at the conclusion of my time, turn it back over to you, Geoff.
No, thank you so much, Annika. And your question about is the money going in the right places and the places that are needed is a fantastic lead into Catherine Wong, given that she is helping us answer those questions and doing that analysis, in particular with climate finance and fragile and conflict affected areas. Catherine's a team leader in climate security risk in the Crisis Bureau and Bureau Policy Program Support at the UN Development Program, and she's really a key leader in the UN trying to work across the silos and across the organizations with the climate security mechanism. And as I mentioned, Catherine and colleagues have been really instrumental in doing some of the analysis on where some of those investments in the climate space have gone and where they haven't gone in areas of conflict and fragility. So, Catherine, can we turn it over to you from your perspective on the last year in environmental peace building?
Yes, thanks so much, Geoff, for the invitation, and thank you also to Annika for the great segue just now. I think, as colleagues have mentioned, I mean, it's been a really amazing year just all around in terms of environmental peacebuilding and climate security, and an amazing opportunity as well to catch up like this. Thanks so much for bringing us all together. One of my just kind of broader observations, I guess, reflecting what colleagues have said so far, is how much the debate on climate peace and security or environmental peacebuilding has really taken shape. And if we look at all the major fora last year on conflict, on fragility, on peace, security, from the Munich Security Conference, the Fragility Forum, World Bank's Annual Summit, Innovate for Climate, Stockholm Forum, I'm sure I'm missing a few, as one forum for the very first time as well, all addressed climate security. And I think that's really indicative of the times. Somehow as well, as Tracy alluded to, climate security somehow seems to have helped a broader renaissance of environmental security and peace building, or a kind of mainstream. I don't know if that's the sense that everyone else has as well. But certainly within UNDP, you know, we had various different projects over the years. I don't know of any other project like the climate security mechanism, one that has been sustained into a third phase of implementation, one that is multi-agency, one that is global as well. And so it's been a real, you know, incredible opportunity to work with DPPA, UNEP and DPO colleagues as well. And I think just that's one of my first takeaways, how much engagement we've had from peace and security actors and those working on other related fields, environmental peace building, environmental security being critically important in terms of this community practice as well. In terms of kind of highlights, if you like, I think it has been an incredible year for climate security finally kind of landing in the broader mainstream climate agenda. This is really important as well, because climate security has so far coexisted on the sidelines, or existed on the sidelines on the fringes of the climate change agenda. It's the only part of the climate change agenda that really hasn't taken shape or form from the international negotiation side. I think, you know, the work of the Egyptian COP presidency, led by the Cairo International Center for Conflict Prevention, Peacekeeping and Peacebuilding, has been incredible. The vision they had, led by Sameh Shokri, Minister Shokri himself as well, has been incredible in bringing climate security, again, from the fringes, from the sidelines, to the centre stage. It's obviously in a different place from loss and damage, and we know that Rome wasn't built in a day, neither was climate security or environmental peacebuilding, but there's so much potential here. I think so many of the issues that we've been working on in environmental peacebuilding and climate security field that maybe are left behind or neglected by the climate change field can be informed by this particular piece of work. So I don't want to get into the broader thing part just yet, but I think the focus of climate responses for sustainable peace on climate change adaptation and peace building, the nexus between these two particular fields, on sustaining peace and climate resilient food systems, durable solutions for the climate displacement nexus, and as Geoff mentioned just now as well, looking at climate finance and how it can contribute to co-benefits of peace and security in conflict-affected and fragile contexts. So this is probably one of the biggest highlights. Obviously, with the two ARIA formula meetings that we saw, the one taking place very early in the year, led by the UAE, you know, we had a focus on climate finance for the very first time in the Security Council. It's something we've also seen in the Secretary General's peace building and sustaining peace reports, right? If you look back in 2018, there's no reference to climate. From 2019 onwards, you see references to climate change and the work of the climate security mechanism in the SDGs reports. From 2021, there's very first reference to climate finance as well. So I think kind of bridging this gap between climate finance and peace building finance is critical as well. I think a lot of the kind of gaps between the technical and thematic teams that work on both streams, those bridges are being built by Annika, by Tracy, and many others, Geoff and Kyle as well. But the financing experts have yet to engage here. I think there are a few other milestones. I know that we're quite limited for time as well, but I would also mention the IPCC report. You know, a lot of colleagues, including myself, I was worried what would happen when I heard that the dedicated human security chapter in the 5th assessment report we wouldn't see a second iteration of that in the 6th assessment report. And we'd heard something to the effect that, you know, there would be broader mainstreaming of climate, peace and security into that 6th assessment report. I wonder what that would look like. And I think it's incredible to see, you know, that thinking again informed by this community as well, reflected there. An understanding not just only of climate change's impacts on drivers of conflict and fragility, but also that the need to target climate sensitive livelihoods and women's empowerment as a way to reduce risks of peace. I think this language is really important. And there's lots of other specific examples that I think we can draw upon now in the IPCC, and that's an important reference point for those of us who work on in the climate field. Just to wrap up and to shift gears a bit, going to the point of practice and operationalization. You know, when we think about when we think about what we can learn from practice as well, and we look back at the last few years, I could only think of 2 evaluations previously on environmental peace building or climate security. Right? There's the piece by the Geoff IEO independent evaluation of this that was led by Carl Brook and team, again looking at conflict sensitivity across all of the Geoff's focal areas and portfolios. I think this was incredible and really informative to our work on climate finance and peace. Before that, there's the evaluation by Emery Busset of UNEP's environmental peacebuilding portfolios. I think it's 2 phases, right, over 7 years, and this is another incredible piece of work. But last year we had 4 evaluations that I can think of. I don't know if colleagues can think of any others, but one of the first ones is the climate security mechanisms evaluation, and again, still the only global project of its kind in the UN system. We have the peacebuilding funds climate security thematic review that Annika referred to just now as well, which is really an excellent piece of work and really shows the kind of innovation and focus on learning and accountability that the peacebuilding fund secretary have put in place. And I think it was an excellent collaboration with the climate security mechanism and with the UNU and many other partners there as well. OIRS, they did an excellent review of the work of DPPA and DPO on climate security. And again, I think taking stock of this, the work of peace and security actors and what their contributions are critical as well. And then finally, an FAO-led evaluation with CJR. So just really some excellent pieces of work, I think, that speak to the state of climate security, the evaluability of this work, that it is robust, that we have the data and the metrics there, although they are a work in progress, and what more we could do in this space. Back over to you, Geoff.
Great. No, thank you, Catherine. And we got a couple of these reports that you mentioned into the chat, because I agree, there's some very good ones. They're not necessarily easily accessible or widely known, and so it's great that you highlighted those and put them in the context of. It's not always easy to perceive which ones have been useful within the kind of very practical and applied UN efforts, and so that's great that you call that out. Well, thanks for a great first round looking back. If we can circle again then with looking forward in terms of what you are anticipating in kind of positive, negative, or uncertain sense, where there are opportunities where you see real challenges, and Tracy pointed one of those out with the ongoing war in Ukraine. And so, Claire, if we can bring it back to you there in Stockholm, can you tell us a little bit about what you're looking to in the next year?
Yeah, thanks, Geoff. Thanks so much. Gosh, so much covered and so many things that I was nodding along to there and thinking I agree with so much. what am I looking forward to? I think one of the areas kind of links back to what Catherine was just saying, and also what you were saying about kind of the solution set and what we can look to. And I think I've reflected with many people in this room already how, you know, the International Panel of the Environmental Peace Report turned around to us a year last December sort of thing, in the looking at the first draft, and went, this is all very depressing. Where are all the stories of the good stuff that's happening, and the hopeful and the positives and the opportunities? And actually, that was one of the hardest bits of the report to research. And I've spent a lot of the last year mulling over, why is this? Why is it that we have more research on where things have gone wrong than where things have gone right? Is that about is it about information flows in terms of there are great projects on the ground happening, but we're just not hearing about them? Is it the fact that our research instinctively focuses on the things that have gone wrong rather than things that have gone right? Or is it that it's just not happening? Or is it that it might be happening, but we're not really evaluating it and monitoring it, and we don't have the right metrics to know whether it's going right? So we think it does, but we don't feel we have enough evidence base, or we feel, even if we're running one of those projects, we're a bit uncertain. So one of the things I'm really looking forward to, and this is definitely where you were talking about, Geoff, that, you know, in that solution set, in those kind of ways forward of integrating these questions around climate and sort of environmental impacts and security risks is this sort of toolkit of environmental peace building. It's really like, how can we get better at understanding what good practice is out there, platforming it, understanding it, sharing it more, but also really importantly, trying to work out, do we know why it's working? Because everything's so context specific that you can't say, well, you know, I think it's really important to be able to say to a policymaker or to a politician or someone in kind of that's, you know, if they're saying, well, give us an example that you can tell a story for the sake of kind of you know, sort of having as an illustrative story. But then actually a lot of policymakers want to know what works, because they want to think about, how do we implement that in our own kind of sort of design of projects. And there you can't say, well, there's this project from Colombia, so if you just cookie cutter that into you know, somewhere else, it's going to work. Of course it's not, and we all understand that. But are there ways of us trying to look at the analysis of kind of, why do different things work in different places? Are there things that are common to those projects? And can we learn something from that which can help kind of inspire? Because I think probably the biggest question I get asked in the most presentations is kind of, from the policy space at least, is kind of, can you tell us what works? Can you tell us kind of what we can, yes, we're bought into this. We've understood that presentation you just gave us was like, you know, makes us want to act, but we're not quite sure what to do, and we're not quite sure how to implement. And so I guess that really brings me to like the second bit I'm looking forward to. I mean, for us, we've kind of set out these principles of recommendations. And from my perspective, it's really thinking about like, well, how do we implement those? I mean, whether that's at a sort of policy level of joining together different parts of organizations to make more, I hate the breaking silos phrase, but kind of being more like working more efficiently across different silos and aligning projects, or just kind of how do we get going sort of implementing some of these principles and projects? And then also really thinking about the amount of money and thinking about the amount of push there will be around mitigation and adaptation. Like, how can we really build in some of these really important principles about how to do the green transition in a way that's more just and more peaceful, to try and, I guess, talk about that as much as possible, because projects are being designed constantly, and the more people we can talk to, the more likely it is that some of that is taken on board in projects that are underway now. And then maybe this is a bit from a different angle, but one of the spaces that I think we haven't, or we as the Environmental Peace Initiative haven't done enough with, is kind of talking to the private sector, not just private finance, but actually huge amounts of these of the green transition will be kind of driven by private sector companies, not just what the public sector is doing. And how can we talk to them about some of these kind of conflict risks, but also about how, it's not their job to be doing peace building, but it is their job to be thinking about how to design projects in a way that avoids creating new social tensions. So those are some of the ones. I'm sure there's millions of others, but yeah, there's a few to get us going, and I'm sure others will have great things to add.
Great. Thank you very much, Claire. It is definitely that challenge of tell us what works. And it's not always well received with, actually make some investments in some of these spaces, try things, and then we'll study them systematically and give you feedback, right? So just like the environmental peace building work in its very earliest years had a strong element of kind of deductive reasoning to it and was meant to spur that kind of both trying things in the field and studying them and broadening the connection. So too, particularly in the climate space, the just and peaceful transition parts of the Environment Peace Report, there were a number of times where the evidence base was by analogy and other experiences in terms of land use change and what that means. In the past, done in the name of, say, conservation, where now it may be done in the name of climate, but we do have lessons, even if they're not built on years and years of massive investment in the climate space, right? So a constant challenge. Tracy, can we turn it to you and what you're looking forward to in the year ahead?
Sure. So let me tell you a little bit about how we're focusing our work in the year ahead. And then secondly, I'll tell you kind of what keeps me up at night in terms of challenges in the year ahead or the years ahead. So in terms of the work that our team is doing at the World Bank, after having gotten defueling conflict out, which is kind of, again, our cookbook for practitioners in development, we're really turning our attention to measurement and really working with pilots and projects in the bank to figure out how do we measure conflict prevention if we're saying that some of our environmental interventions aspire to reducing conflict. Can we measure that? Do we use everyday indicators? How is that cost effective? Can we upscale some of what's been done in kind of this, some of our smaller, more innovative NGOs into the monitoring and indicator work at the World Bank? How would that work? What can we upscale? And so that's one area. A second area where I think we'll be working is looking at the broader issue of organizational capacity for integrating conflict sensitivity into programming. And that kind of cuts across technical skills, incentives, tools, programming, linkages across, structural linkages across climate financing, as we've been talking about. And that, we've been talking about coordinating with some of the work that the Peace Nexus Foundation is doing, coordinating with some of the work that ELI is doing, and some of the other of you may be doing in terms of looking at how you build organizational capacity for conflict-sensitive programming. So that is certainly broader than an environmental peace building agenda because we're talking about conflict sensitivity generally, but it is a lot of what I find we have to do in environmental peace building suits us, but it suits other types of peace building work as well. And so if we kind of carry some of that load that benefits others, then so be it. In turning to what keeps me up at night, the first thing that keeps me up at night is that is the kind of the proliferation of private sector, non-state armed groups like the Wagner Group, and their ability to destabilize large parts of our conflict and, our fragile and conflict states. And the fact that in general, our community doesn't or hasn't yet really attracted actors in the security space. Because actors in the security space also are concerned about how to do security right when you have kind of security being done on the dark side of the moon. And so that is, there's security actors certainly involved in security for international extraction of minerals. Generally, the security space has a lot more money than the peace building space does. And they're concerned about how to do it right and how to contribute to governance and how to contribute to capacity building. And, many of the same things we discuss, they discuss as well. And so that, I think, is a huge issue, is how to really bring the peace building and security space together. I'm also just personally worried about what I see as a second coming of the Cold War in Africa, like we had in the 70s and 80s. I think it's already there. It's just, instead of it being US versus the USSR, it's Russia versus China. And everyone else is on the sidelines. And that is important because it affects governance, it affects environmental governance, and it affects a huge amount of the world's natural resource assets. And so that is it's bigger than what we can address, but I think many actors are late to the table and really calling it what it is. And, I'm at the point where I'm going to call it what it is. It's a Cold War. It's a Cold War with proxy actors, and it affects everything we do. So Claire took a little bit of my thunder when it came to say, that yes, security has a lot of money that we need to kind of tap into and bridge. The private sector is huge and doing lots of things in the same space, and we don't really have those connections either. It takes an effort to try to figure out how to do that. And I think they feel the same way in terms of frustration with how to talk to us because we speak different languages. And also just in terms of, as this community grows, kind of the last thing that keeps me up at night is if we have a huge community and it bifurcates into policy versus practitioners, how do we continue to have the middlemen, who make the linkages across? Because I've continually said, I don't go to COPs. I don't engage in the policy space. I'm too busy doing work on the ground. Don't bother me with white papers, because, we need to figure out how to get it done. When we spend the money, how's the money spent? How do we show what's happening on the ground? And we've got to have passion at both sides. And then we have to constantly be talking back and forth. And so as this community grows, we need to make sure that as we kind of shed our skin and shed our skin and shed our skin again, that we're constantly walking into a new skin that is able to hold a bigger community. And so with that, back to you, Geoff.
Terrific. Thank you, Stacey. I appreciate that frame of what keeps you up at night, because it isn't just it's not all positive, and the challenges aren't there, and the challenges will change over time, right? And these are important contexts, even if they're not kind of narrowly focused within the environmental peace building. They're absolutely essential contexts and drivers for understanding where there are opportunities, where there remain real challenges and changing challenges. Catherine, let's turn it to you. Or sorry, get my order right. Annika first, and then Catherine. Sorry, don't mean to surprise you.
No worries. I was just thinking, I feel like y'all are giving me my 2023 work plan right now. I'm very, very grateful for this conversation. It comes at a good time. Let me set my timer for myself again so I don't go off the rails. If you look in the white paper on environmental peacebuilding that launched almost 1 year ago, we're coming up in 1 week on the 1 year anniversary. You'll see we actually have an agenda, forward-looking agenda on environmental peacebuilding. And we are making some progress on some of those elements. I think we're starting to make a little footprints in embedding environmental peacebuilding in policy frameworks and advocating for leadership at different levels and different kinds of institutions and engaging different international frameworks. And we actually do have sort of these 3 tracks: the policy, the practice, and the evidence. And Tracy, I was just talking earlier today with Michael Beavers, who's on the call, about how do we give people rooms to go in and have those deep dive conversations, but create incentives for us to continue to meet in the lobby and exchange. It's how my brain is sort of spatially mapping it. But we have definitely some things on our agenda that I think we have a lot of room to grow into in this year, in 2023. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And really, for me, it revolves around inclusion and diverse participation, especially in these spaces online. I feel so honored by the trust and support of the community in me as a young community manager. I don't take that for granted. And I also don't take for granted the amount of female representation here on this panel. It's wonderful. But I also think that decolonization can continue to become more of a part of the conversation. It started, we've been talking about decolonization and environmental peacebuilding for a while. There were fantastic conversations at last year's conference on environmental peacebuilding. And we have a lot of tools, we have the expertise. And I think that that's something I would encourage almost everyone on the call to continue to dig into and to think about this year. You don't sort of design the program and then decolonize it. You kind of start where you are with that work. And dealing with really complex issues like the intersection of natural resources, of livelihoods, of climate change, of peace, of conflict, of the way that we show up with each other is so complex, and it requires participatory approaches. Our community is increasingly international, so I would encourage everyone to think about, what does it mean to intentionally seek out and co-design projects with diverse groups of people? And that can, of course, be diversity by geographic region, by field of training. I literally have a list now after the first 2 speakers of, okay, thinking through private sector, okay, thinking through, I'm not joking when I mean you're giving me my work plan. But I think it's something I want to encourage all of us to really be holding as a sticky note on your screen or in your office as you move through this year. And I have a couple of just sort of concrete ideas around this. And I don't mean to be lecturing, but I think it is always helpful to be reminded of these things. One, as they're doing on this call, providing closed captioning in meetings and translating transcripts via DeepL. DeepL is an easy translator that really, I'll put the link in the chat or somebody can, that makes it really easy to make these spaces more language inclusive. I had the true honor of helping the Global Youth Forum on Biodiversity a couple of years ago with Becca Farnham, and one of the phrases that stuck with me from the youth leaders was, English is not the language of conservation, and I think we can do well to remember that. We can also translate all of our texts, our reports, our emails, our invitations. It's something I'm thinking about a lot, using DeepL, using translators, but even just make yourself a steering committee, make yourself a personal steering committee. Why not? Of 3 to 4 people who are coming from different generations, backgrounds, geographic regions, meet every 6 weeks and exchange with one another on the projects you're working on. It doesn't have to be extractive. You don't have to convene them to, get their brain space, but bring together a small group of people who are quite different than you by a number of different ranges, and exchange ideas every 6 weeks. Put it on the calendar. I would also be really curious to hear in the chat any other ideas or tools or structures that some of you are using around decolonization in your work, because I know there's a ton of wisdom in this community on that. It's just really to say that when you're drafting and scheming and building and planning, leverage the communities to connect yourself. I think I've been digging into complexity theory recently, and one of the really important facets of complexity is that uniformity is weakness and greater diversity translates to more resilient systems. And if we're trying to create our community of practice to be a more resilient system, we have to harness that diversity. I think maybe I'll stop there. Before I get too far and forget though, I'll include a link. I know we keep talking about this community of practice and I'm very conscious that not all of you know what that is or are necessarily a part of it, but you're very welcome to be. I'm very proud to be a member of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and a part of this very vibrant community of practice. So I'll put a link in case some of you are interested in joining some of our very sort of practical action oriented calls. But I'll stop myself here.
Great, terrific. Catherine, last but not least, what are you looking forward to here in this next year?
Thanks so much, Geoff. Great to hear from colleagues already in terms of what they're looking forward to as well. I would say, you know, from my side as someone who kind of transitioned over from the broader climate environmental field, that's where I worked for the last 10 to 15 years into climate security and environmental peacebuilding. It was a really big jump. You know, there's a really sharp learning curve. And to Annika's earlier point about you know, being the only climate security environmental peacebuilding focal point in your organisation, trying to grow that team. I think of all the hurdles. When I look forward, I think there really is so much to look forward to. And I guess what excites me is maybe the kind of professionalisation of this agenda. You know, a couple of years ago, I don't think I'd seen an actual kind of full master's course on climate security. I know there's courses obviously offered by Geoff and colleagues on broader global security and environmental security, environmental management, so on and so forth. But I thought it was quite exciting to see the London Metropolitan University offering this course together with UNITA. Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security, they've done some excellent work, I think, on the kind of gender, climate security and access. And seeing that they're advertising for a fellow to work on graduate courses as well, I think is really exciting. There's the Centre for Climate Security's Ecological Security Fellowship, and so many other short courses. As UNDP, we launched the first iteration of our Climate Peace and Security Academy. Again, trying to bring together some of the broader thinking on climate finance for sustaining peace. Understanding the challenge as well. I think it's very difficult to just influence and make sure that conflict sensitivity and thinking around this kind of peace co-benefit informs finance without making sure that it also informs policy and broader kind of global climate governance. And so we hope to be able to kind of connect the thinking there on both, and that reflects some of the early work that we did with UNFCCC, analysing how climate-related security risks are mainstreamed into the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. So we really hope to take some of this work forward ourselves as well to try to contribute to some of the gaps that we are seeing in training and understanding, particularly again around global climate governance architecture and what the entry points might be for environmental peacebuilding and climate security. The other thing that I think is exciting, again, just speaking to the professionalisation of the agenda, is how many colleagues, maybe I count myself as amongst this kind of new cohort as well, how many amongst this new cohort who are working in climate security and environmental peacebuilding now have moved to a second position in this field? How many people are staying in this field and choosing this field as a career, and how many new opportunities there are? And I think that's also a responsibility, again, collectively to try to grow this community practice together, to make sure that we are contributing and investing into kind of the next generation of climate security experts. And I think about that also looking back, thinking and the gaps that we experienced in terms of capacity, trying to fill those gaps, the recruitments that we did over the last years, and how hard it was to find colleagues and experts who were versatile enough, those who were able to maneuver the kind of climate environmental agenda and had a very good understanding of peace and security at the same time as well. In terms of the climate security mechanisms, like I think this is a really exciting phase for us as well. You know, the first phase of our work was very much focused at headquarters level on advocacy and coordination. We were able to grow very quickly, particularly last year, our community of practice to about 450 members from 35 different UN entities, which I think again is indicative of the times and the interest that Tracy mentioned just now. We have deployed climate security advisors to regional entities from the Global South, speaking to Annika's point about decolonization of this agenda and Delighted to see that my colleague Pascal Yako is joining today as well. He's our climate security advisor, the Untitled Chapter Authority. I think making sure that this agenda is informed by global South actors, that they're able to develop strategies and action plans and lead research in this space is particularly important. For the very first time, at the end of last year, we were able to set up a global team as UNDP of regional advisors on climate security, working from within the regions, as well as covering all major regions, working on climate security and environmental peace building. And I think, again, we do hope that this connects somehow the policy and practice feedback loop. It's very difficult, right, to have an entirely practice-led agenda that has no policy top cover. And that's kind of how I see environmental peace building and kind of the early days of environmental security as well. Such important work that's been done on the ground, but trying to affect that change at a policy level is difficult. Obviously, a policy agenda doesn't survive unless it's nurtured by practice either. So somehow, again, we'll, I think, keep trying to elaborate the work plan, trying to focus on learning and get to the metrics piece. And it's really exciting to hear Tracy mention that as well. I think a lot of the times, and I do consider myself a practitioner as well, there's so much knowledge that's generated as a byproduct of what we do, and not being able to share that knowledge, you know, it's a real pity. Trying to find time to capture that knowledge and make sure that it's useful and disseminate it to other actors is another challenge as well. Just to quickly wrap up, I think, you know, from the climate security mechanism side, apart from the advisors that we are deploying to regional entities, we also have now a presence among special political missions and peace, special political missions and peace operations as well. Again, trying to engage and work on these different tracks, right? To work on the policy track, to work on practice, the field, to the political level as well, and then to get to better institutionalization of the agenda. I think, you know, there are normally kind of two routes, right? Kind of a legal route or an institutional route. Institutionalization, regularization of this work, so that it isn't just project based and kind of subject to the different whims of changing it, of changing appetites by donors and funding sources is critical. We were able to also, the very first time, deploy the first ever climate security advisor to a peace operation to the UN mission in South Sudan, and I think that's also an important development moving forwards, and again another opportunity to engage at Juba and then more broadly in the region as well. Maybe I'll stop here. I think I'm over time, so back over to you, Geoff.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Catherine. It's a rich agenda for sure, and lots to do as the comments from all four of you for the year ahead illustrate. I think also appreciate some of the resources the speakers and their organizations have been dropping in, but also some of the additional invitations to engage and kind of key points and reminders, both Geoff Peterson and Bernd Unger with the kind of different interventions, but came to some of the same points that there are some models for engagement beyond the voices that have most often been in the room. And it's critically important to have those voices there across generations, across different groups, lots on indigenous and marginalized peoples in terms of having the kind of insights, experience, and assets that those voices and experiences bring to the table rather than the kind of historical marginalization of those. And so urge you to look at their comments. So we have an opportunity now for a few minutes to further gather reflections, to pose questions to our panelists and share some of the insights and takes that this really robust group of people with lots of different experience bring to it. I think you're welcome to drop a question in the chat. You also, I think we have it so that hands can go up. Yep, in fact, I see Helen just put her hand up, so that function seems to be working, and that we can get a couple questions that way, and you feel free to direct it to a specific panelist or just make a comment, and then hopefully we can get a number of them and have an opportunity. So Helen, would you like to unmute and share something with the group?
Thank you so much. I am a newcomer to the group. My name is Helen Olofsdottir, and I'm working as a security sector technical specialist. I don't really know what that means, but the technical specialist bit. but I'm working on Somalia, and I'm in a design phase of our new sort of security sector governance project. And I'm sort of feel like I've landed in a group of like people where I just want to sort of grab each one of you to bring to my level to help me where we are, because I think what, as a practitioner, sort of trying to weave through all of these instruments on the ground, it's horrendous, quite frankly, to try and bring all of these concepts together, which is a jungle for somebody who's not necessarily been operating in the space of environment alongside security. So this is new, and we've been talking through with our teams in UNDP locally how we can sort of bring the nexus together so that we have where we, and again, that brings me to the many different instruments that are now available. So we sit there and we talk about the frameworks of the peace, security nexus. We talk about livelihood nexus. There is multiple frameworks that I find as practitioners, we are now struggling to understand where we can grab onto it. Working for UNDP, 6 signature solutions, the integration, you end up with so many frameworks that I think, I'd love to hear from whether it's, people who are at the sort of more academic level, or maybe Catherine also from UNDP, where can we seek refuge in sort of trying to work through the many different instruments which go all the way from the policy pieces, but also the tools that we can then use, and then that what links in with the different governance frameworks. And of course, as has been pointed out, there's no course on this yet in the university. So it seems like it's still a very fresh new area. So thank you. And you will be seeing more of me, because I will want to learn a lot more about and read your publications to get up to speed, so I can actually introduce that into my programming in Somalia, which, as you can imagine, has enormous issues with drought, climate change, terrorism, you name it, we've all got it there in Somalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen. It's an insightful comment, because I do think, as somebody who's worked in this space, there has been, on the one hand, enthusiasm from different bilateral perspectives, UN perspectives, NGO research, but everybody wants their toolkit, their tool there. And some of the coming together that Annika and others have talked about, and certainly Catherine's reflecting with the specific mechanism there at the UN, is trying to get at some of that overlap, repetition, comparative advantage, latest new thing. I think in the Somali case, as Catherine alluded to, having Christoph Hodder there as a kind of a UN rep has that climate security brief will help sort through some of what has worked and what has been less useful. But no doubt that complexity of how these things are connected mean that, the good news is a lot of people come to the question. The challenge is a lot of people come to the question and have different approaches. And I see Annika has also put in a database tool to find out some of those ones. But Catherine, or all of you in the panel have kind of tried to navigate these seas of many and competing tools. Any reflections on your experience to help Helen navigate it?
Yeah, thanks so much, Geoff. I could try to come in here as well. Actually, I was going to let one of the other colleagues go first, so that we don't have like a kind of UNDP only kind of, or UNDP kind of discussion. But it's great to meet you, Helen. I don't think we've met before, and I think it's really exciting, as Geoff said, the work that Chris is doing in Somalia, and the opportunities that there are to connect around that as well. And we do have a project in Somalia that's been led by Tariq al-Islam as well, that's supported by the Climate Security Mechanism. This focuses on applying environmental peace-building approaches at a local level to support communities, Galmudug, in Galmudug, in Mogadishu, and Puntland as well. So I think there are some connections that could be made in terms of actual programmatic work and taking stock of that particular project, what's been done, and how those approaches could be applied more broadly to our portfolio. In that regard, my colleague Anna, who I think is still online, is trying to travel to Somalia actually to support with her upscaling. So it'd be great for her to exchange with you on that. More precisely on tools, we were tasked with the climate security mechanism to develop a tool for integrated analysis of climate-related security risks. So this was by the Secretary General's Executive and Deputies Committee. I think it was a really important exercise, right? There's a whole set of tools and approaches from the kind of climate part of the house, in terms of how we conduct climate change vulnerability assessments, identify appropriate adaptation measures, and so on and so forth. And then another set of tools for the analysis of conflict, political economy analysis as well. And what we try to do with this kind of integrated assessment approach and toolbox is to try to marry together these different approaches. It's easier said than done. I think the tool has been sensitized, but with about 850 people so far. I'm sure at some point we'll be tasked to develop the second iteration of that tool as well. And there were so many colleagues in this group, CIPRI, among others as well, who have contributed to the design of originals. So it'd be great to get feedback as we try to work on the second iteration. Yeah, and I go back to the point on evaluations that there are many excellent evaluations now that we can use to take stock of. I think the Peacebuilding Fund, they do, what's the best way to describe it, kind of road shows where they're meeting partners on the ground and making sure that they do have experience exchange sessions as well. Climate security is a focal point in their investment strategy over the next 3 years. So I think that's another way to connect as well. So there's definitely opportunities, I think, both from the kind of peacebuilding part of the house and climate in terms of finance, and then the different strategies and tools and approaches and a complement that goes with that as well. I think that's then we'll be able to help connect you with kind of expertise from both sides depending on what you're looking for.
Great. Thank you very much, Catherine. That's very helpful. I appreciate the great questions and resources that are being dropped into the chat. I'd like to, if I may, ask Erica Weinthal, who we heard up front talking about the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, to, as an expert on environmental damage in times of war, and including areas of the world in Ukraine. And so Alex Belikov asks about what the Environmental Peacebuilding Association is doing and the kind of work in this space around Ukraine. Erica, can I put you on the spot to share some of this? Because I know you recently spoke on a panel on this issue that was very well received.
Thanks, Geoff. So if you were to ask me what keeps me up at night, it is the war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the damage that has been inflicted on the population, but also noting that this is not just 2022, but something that's been ongoing since 2014. So I think one of the things as an association that we do is also study protracted conflict and study the long-term impacts on ecosystems, but also on civilians and well-being. And this is where you see intersections with the humanitarian community, the development community, and recognizing that the environment is made up, those of us who are concerned about environmental peace building, it's really about nexus issues. I think what the community has been doing that is the most important, and it's partnerships between academics, NGOs, outside of Ukraine, but also within Ukraine. The Ukrainian Ministry of Environment has been playing also a really important role, is tracking damage, tracking attacks on infrastructure, tracking, the targeting of water infrastructure that has been ongoing since 2014 in the Donbass, looking at what's been happening to electrical power plants. As Tracy noted, Ukraine is heavily industrialized. So the damage is quite different than conflicts that may be taking place in rural areas. We're seeing conflicts in urban settings. So tracking the damage and doing environmental assessments is going to be critical for rebuilding, reconstruction. And I know there's a lot of work already going on among colleagues in Ukraine already thinking about rebuilding. At the Kyiv School of Economics and in the different ministries. And that's where we should be thinking about how to partner in helping with the rebuilding, reconstruction, but also with accountability measures for, how to track the costs of the war on the environment and what legal mechanisms exist. We recently held an event on water with colleagues from Ukraine, and there will be a public event hopefully happening in the next month. And when that happens, we will send it out through the Environmental Peacebuilding Association that will bring together colleagues from the policymaking practitioner community, but also colleagues from Ukraine who work in the water utilities to talk about the impacts on the water sector. Other ways, for me as an academic, what I've been doing just at my university, which I hope others will also think about, is supporting colleagues, faculty, and students in Ukraine. We've been doing this by, last summer, we ran a workshop where we had modules on everything from the environmental, cost of the war, like what one measures in the water sector, looking at soil, looking at, having environmental toxicologists speak, to having medical doctors talk about trauma and like brain injuries, everything from, bringing in colleagues from the medical side to the environmental side, but also finding ways to provide grants to faculty and students in Ukraine. So that's, as an academic, what I think is really important. I could go on for a long time because this is what really does keep me up at night, but I will let others jump in.
No, thank you very much, Erica. I really appreciate your leadership and insight on this. Literally since the very early days of the environmental peace building work, with your work on Central Asia and that part of the world. I appreciate, Pauline, your question about integrating the perspectives and priorities in terms of cultural heritage, including but not limited to Indigenous knowledge, and some of the folks who've responded with resources. It makes me instantly think of the work of Kim Marion Suizia from Northwestern, actually one of Erica's former students and now a quite accomplished faculty member there in political science, writing about natural resources and Indigenous people, particularly in Southeast Asia, but certainly not limited to that, some work in the United States as well. And I think that has been one welcome development from some of the folks who are really the energy and the research in this space, not treating the United States as a separate case, or some of the north, south, east, west, a variety of developing, all these different imprecise and often even offensive monikers for making distinctions. But I think having a truly inclusive conversation that doesn't leave any geography unexamined, and the challenges brought together, because while, as Claire pointed out, we need to avoid the kind of cookie cutter approach, we need to make sure we're studying all the dimensions of them and how they can, some of the drivers, beneficiaries, and malign actors can be quite remote from some of the field-based interfaces of these issues, as we have learned the hard way over time in the evolution of this area. We're approaching the end of the time. This has been a super rich conversation. Really appreciate everybody dropping the valuable links into the chat with new reports and assessments and opportunities. It really is at the heart of what the Environmental Peacebuilding Association aims to do, which is be this connector, and in the ways that Annika gave us a very specific kind of strategies for doing it, it is exactly what we're trying to do with this. Fortunately, thanks to the hard work of Bouquet and Carl Brook and folks at Environmental Law Institute and the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, we'll have this as a resource going forward. I urge you to find these networks where you can get the information, build these bridges, and have these conversations that even if we don't like the silo busting phraseology, we can really work across them in ways that are quite productive. So I think I'll suggest that we end here formally, that the speakers are all, as you saw, very generous in sharing their insights. And I know they would welcome to continue that conversation, as well as Erica and the association and Larry and the association as leadership there. It is it's really our privilege, and thank you all for your hard work, and we look forward to next steps and next January, where we'll have a equally enlightening year ahead and year behind, and hopefully those things keeping us up at night aren't keeping us up quite as much. We've made progress. So thank you all very much. If we were in the room, I'd say join me in thanking our panelists, but don't need to bang on your desk and such. Yeah, thanks, Larry. It's the way. Thanks so much for everything, and I hope you all have the rest of the day. For some of us, that's a lot. Some of us, the day's about over. Thanks for tuning in.